Welcome. My name is Santander. I'm Managing Director at Eco Enterprises Fund. Today, I want to tell you a little bit about our experience in stakeholder mapping and stakeholder engagement across our portfolios. As you know, businesses are all about people. So as you go about developing your business plan and starting and scaling your business, you should be aware of the people, of the groups surrounding you that will be critical to make your business a success and to ensure that your business creates the most value and the most positive impact possible. These people, of course, start with the obvious ones: your team, your founding partners, your employees, your clients. But stakeholder analysis goes way beyond that. And it's an iterative process where you think deeply about who are the stakeholders that will be interested in your business, that will be affected by your business in a positive or in a negative way, and how should you interact with those to make sure that your operations, that your activities are a win-win for everybody involved. Stakeholder analysis is an iterative process. And by no means is it necessary that on day one, you know each and every stakeholder you will ever have to deal with as you build your business. But it is important and highly recommendable that in the early days of founding your business, you take a step back and really try to think about everybody who will need to be involved on different levels and on different times, but that will be important to you and your business. As you can see on the first chart I'm sharing, the key steps of a shareholder analysis are quite straightforward. First, you want to identify your stakeholders. You want to know who has an interest in your company and who is of interest for you. Second, you want to cluster and to bundle them into groups to make it easier to engage with certain segments of stakeholders, especially as your company grows and the number of stakeholders you will have to deal with increases continuously. Third, document them. Really try to get a detailed register of who your stakeholders are, if possible, with a contact person, with contact details to make sure that your communication is directed to the right people and gets there effectively. Fourth, plan and implement your communication plan. This involves written communication, personal interactions, etc. And then you implement your plan, you monitor the outcome, you double check how successful different types of interactions are, and if necessary, you tweak and adjust your initial analysis and repeat. Of course, each step in this simplified process has its specific challenges and specific things to keep in mind. So let's take a look at the first one, the stakeholder identification. There are a lot of different methods that you can use to structure your thinking as you start to identify your stakeholders. Choose the one you feel most comfortable with. Whatever you pick, I highly recommend that you do pick a method to help you to be thorough and really be organized when you think about stakeholders, and this way ensure that you're not forgetting anyone. For example, you will think about the classic stakeholders immediately. You will already know who your key clients are, maybe even who your most important competitors are. You definitely need to know your core team. But then there are a lot of stakeholders that might be less obvious. And it is very important that you get to a level of detail in your analysis that you can feel assured that you have covered each and every one. Not everyone will be as important as others, but it is important that in this first step, you don't filter by importance, but that you really have the complete list of stakeholders that interact with your company, that might have an interest in your company. So on this slide that I'm sharing here, slide number 2, you will see 3 illustrative methods that I would recommend you check out. Some of them you may have seen. I know the pestle method has been discussed before. I also included a shareholder wheel a lot of people like to use. Traditionally, a wheel simply puts right next to each other the different classical groups of stakeholders, and then it's up to you to really add specific groups and names under these overarching groups. There might be clients, employees, communities, social groups, but there might also be academia, for example, if you cooperate with universities to develop your product or to test your products. So really think about who might be relevant for your business and feel free to tailor any method to your business reality. So take a wheel, delete whoever might not be relevant for you, add who you feel might be missing in your case, and then build on this basis. One method I personally like a lot is identifying your stakeholders along your value chain. You may be familiar with the value chain concept, which plots your primary business activities from sourcing raw material to transformation to marketing and sales, etc. Plus, it adds support activities, internal functions like HR, IT, etc. So every entrepreneur is intimately familiar with his or her business activities and how its business unfolds on a day-by-day basis, week by week, each quarter, each year, etc. And it seems to be a natural way to really think through your processes and your activities and plot the corresponding stakeholders that you will interact with along these steps, or that may be a relevant audience for you as you go along. Now, as I said, pick and choose whatever you feel comes most natural to you. I encourage you to share this thinking with members of your team, or maybe even try one or two methods, or have different people of your team try out a different method, because also different people will interact with different stakeholders and maybe come up with different ideas. Once you have identified your long list of stakeholders, we come to step number 2, which is the analysis and the classification of your stakeholders. For this step, it is very helpful to work with a visual stakeholder map, which shows you quickly and easily identifiable where different stakeholders are grouped together. The two items that we differentiate in a stakeholder map are the interest and the power or the influence that different stakeholders have in your business. So there might be large groups that have a minor interest in your business that you may want to inform about what is going on, but that you don't need to address very proactively and individually. There might be others that have a very high interest in your company, so they will naturally be more important to keep in mind as you plan your stakeholder engagement. Then you have the power and influence on your business, and this is very important to think through in a detailed manner, because you want to make sure that you identify those that really have a big influence on your business and that could either add great value to your business or put up big roadblocks while you try to grow your business. And these stakeholders come from very different corners. There might be people that have a very strong financial interest in your business, your investors, a competitor. There might be others that have an emotional connection or an emotional interest. And then again, the influence. It might be a competitor that has a big network and big influence in the sector you're moving into. Or it may simply be a neighbor that has a strong relationship with a local mayor, and that might be able to make your life difficult if he doesn't feel that your business activities are in his favor or that he is in agreement with what is unfolding. Really use this map to organize your long list of stakeholders, sort of do an initial version, and again, go back to your team, go back to business partners to double check your analysis and maybe see if others have different experience or a different perspective, to really make sure that you have grouped stakeholders correctly and put them in the right corner. Again, it is very important to understand who is in your corner, who is in favor of what you are building, who might be critical about what you do, and really make sure that you identify those that have a high interest and high influence on your business as it unfolds. With that, we come to the next and final step. You want to plan your stakeholder engagement. And this is really where this visual stakeholder map comes in handy, because it makes it easy to identify stakeholders that you really need to target in an individual fashion. So everybody who has high interest, high influence, needs to be a top priority for you in your stakeholder management. So they will most likely need a very personal communication style. You will want to partner with them. You will want to get their input and feedback, and will want to make sure that they feel heard and that they maybe even have a co-ownership in the sense of how the business develops. This might be the local mayor that may come in to brainstorm with you about the business expansion that you plan, or it might be the key supplier that is crucial to deliver the essential raw materials for the product. On the bottom left corner, you may have people with low interest and low influence, but you still may want to keep them informed. So you may want to issue a press release, or maybe do some other sort of community activity to inform people about what is going on, to make sure that everybody can feel at peace about what is being developed, and that there is no sort of doubts or hesitations about it that may grow into something bigger, simply because people feel left out. So, as I said, this map guides you very easily and very quickly in sort of how intensive the type of interaction with your stakeholders have to be. And then the next step would really be to develop a formal process, a formal plan that should include the stakeholder groups, that should include the contact people you will reach out to, the format, the type of communication you will be using, and the person within your company that is responsible for carrying it out, maybe even deadlines or the frequency of a communication. There might be stakeholders you want to touch base with on a weekly basis, others that may only receive sort of a press release once a year. But really make sure that you have a clear strategy for each group, for each segment of stakeholders, and that you roll that out throughout the year. This is also in terms of company governance, a very important part that you should continue to develop. A lot of companies grow out of a very sort of confined stakeholder space, and suddenly are confronted with much larger stakeholder groups, but they continue to work with the same processes that they had before. The head of sales keeps in touch with key clients, HR keeps in touch with local communities for hiring and employment opportunities, and the sourcing team or the chief agronomist or chief of operation is in touch with suppliers. If you don't have this internal process, a formal stakeholder management process, where you have earmarked a date in your calendar to review your stakeholder analysis and your stakeholder engagement plan, it might easily happen that you get distracted by other urgent items at hand, by growing your company, by dealing with your clients, by developing new products, and that at some point something happens and a conflict occurs simply because you haven't put attention to it. Updating your stakeholder analysis and your management plan is usually something relatively quick and easy, but as part of a good governance, it is highly recommendable that you just keep it on your company's calendar and on your minds, and just have a formalized process where you make sure that you continue to be engaged and that you continue to have an open communication with all the different stakeholders groups. Well, good luck, and thank you very much for listening.